What is up, winners? Welcome back to another high value chat on the podcast that feeds your mind, body, and soul. Absolutely everything you need to live the life of your dreams, whatever that looks like for you. My name is Jack William, founder of Anarchy Label and host of Before the Money. Now, when my guest in today's episode first came to Australia, he didn't know a word of English, and since then has gone on to build a very well respected name in Australia's art and fashion scene. He has performed on shows such as So You Think You Can Dance during his time as a professional breakdancer, and in 2013 stepped hard into the fashion scene, launching luxury streetwear brand and store Cabernet Noir. His work has been recognised around the globe in prominent fashion publications such as Sneaker Freaker and Hypebeast, and to say that his passion is infectious would be a gross understatement. I'm extremely excited to share this conversation with none other than Edward Maradona. There is so much value in today's episode regarding fashion and culture, but the wisdom shared from Edward's life has been invaluable in shaping the decisions that I've made in my own business since having this conversation with him. Some of the topics we chatted about include how to start a brand, defining your audience, personal brand versus business brand, why both are important, the background of fashion in hip-hop and breakdancing, becoming a stockist for the very exclusive Hompus range from Comme des Garçons, communicating through fashion, how to structure a brand timeline, understanding trends and what to look for, inside stories of partnering with prominent sneaker brands like Nike and Yeezy, manifestation, spirituality, and so much more. Guys, I'm serious, this episode is packed. I had such a great time. And seeing the impact that this show has on the life and the mindset of our community gets me so ridiculously fired up. So if you enjoyed this show, if you took home a little piece of value, please leave behind 5 stars and share this to someone you love, or post it on your story. Whatever you can do really helps, because seriously, the right piece of information at the right time can change somebody's life. So don't keep this secret all to yourself. If you want to take your support a step further, check out the awesome range at anarchylabel.com and take 15% off your entire order with the code BTM15. So without further ado, grab hold of your pens and I will see you in the episode.
Anarchy! I don't even know what this means, but I love it!
Awesome. All right, what is up, everybody? Welcome back to another amazing episode of Before the Money. I'm joined by Edward Maradona. How are you doing today, brother?
I'm very well, Jack. Thanks for having me on the podcast. Super stoked to be on. And there's a lot of things that I want to talk about and with you and stuff like that as well. Just trying to figure out what you're doing, and I guess we're on the opposite side of the continent, and the West Coast kind of a little bit more. We're inside of our own bubble in a way.
Yeah. 100%. I've been looking at what's going on over in Perth, man, especially in the fashion scene. There's some real talent bubbling up there, It's fantastic.
Yeah. Bro, to be honest, we maybe 7, 8 years, 10 years ago, we used to look up, Melbourne, Sydney. It's like, hey man, one day we're gonna be reach that level. But because we're so far away and the internet kind of connect everyone in a sense that look, we don't need to look at what Sydney and Melbourne doing now. We can see what New York is doing now. We can see what Paris is doing now. Do you know what I mean? The world is becoming smaller with the internet. And because of that, we're progressing a lot more, a lot quicker. And we're forming our own bubble, the Perth bubble is it's growing insanely. If there's nothing, usually we just complain about, oh man, there's nothing in Perth, this. But now all the kids here is man, there's nothing in Perth. Let's do it. Let's just make one. And I love that, that really inspired me. All these kids, 18-year-old, 19-year-old, 20-year-olds doing events and promotions and stuff like that. I'm what? How did you 15-year-olds doing brand? I'm how'd you figure that out? You're 15 and you already have your own brand.
100%,
it's insane. And I love what they're doing.
Yeah, seriously, I've been watching what you guys have been doing at the store and all the brands that are associated to there, and I've even considered moving over there, man. It seems like it's, especially in the fashion scene, it seems like it's popping off.
So just it's funny you saying that, because you know what, a lot of my colleagues, a lot of my friends based in Europe and New York and stuff like that in the fashion industry, they're looking at what we're doing man, we just want to live in Perth and we just want to create something. But they really want to literally planning to move their whole agency to Perth, and then we're like, dude, this, I said, Perth is a blank canvas. And there's a lot of opportunities there, and there's a lot of cool brands coming out of Perth, and we just kind of all right. And the good thing about Perth is we're so proud of our local brands, and there's we support local no other cities to us, right? Like Melbourne, Sydney, like there's so many bubbles there,
Yeah.
and there's so many like local brands, but there's no like collective support for one particular brand, and they just kind of like stick their own bubble. Like, oh, yeah, we have this bubble, we have this bubble, we have this little cult brand. But in
Hmm.
Perth, it's like, oh man, you Perth, like Perth, the whole city kind of goes behind it, and it's insane.
Yeah.
And I love that,
100%.
like big family.
Yeah, exactly. I love that too. And like far too often, like the smaller businesses get overlooked by their own city because it's like, your own city won't support you until the next one does, basically. But it's great to hear that happening in Perth.
And the
So,
mentality of like I feel like the mentality in Australia is to make it big in your own city or your own country, you have to make it big like overseas.
mhm,
This is what I find with like a lot of brands, especially like, hey, to make it big here, I feel like your brand has to reach that global level first before the local people like support or start like getting into it behind the brand. Like look
100%,
at
man.
brands like P Nation and like IMG. Like I'm seeing all these brands like man going global because
Mm,
it's like Kim K wears it and stuff like that, and it just kind of blew up.
yeah,
But it's really
definitely, man.
interesting, yeah.
Sick. So
And
basically,
you said you have a brand, sorry, and you
yeah,
said you have a brand, right?
yeah.
Anarchy. You
Anarchy
had for
label,
seven
yeah.
years. Yeah,
Yeah, I
sick, man.
started that in high school. It was originally like a marketing and graphic design agency, and then I kind of
Yeah,
got the inkling. I was like, I'm sick of dealing with like at the time, however 16 or however old you are in grade 10. I was like, I'm
yeah,
sick of dealing with all these adults and things like that. I want to create something that I can sell to people my age. And so I just
yeah,
started putting my graphics on t-shirts and selling them at markets and doing all that kind of stuff. And then I got the inkling to start manufacturing because I just wasn't happy with like the blanks that were available. So once
yeah.
I got that bug, I was just like, "Fuck it, yeah, let's do it." And now I kind of contract manufacturer for other brands and stuff like that, Gold Coast
So
based. So
you were
it's just
16 when you started it,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and that's 7 years ago. So I guess you already can find manufacturers online and stuff, right? Like back then, I think it was already. I mean, I started in 2009 with my brand. It was like not online. We had to really like
Hmm.
the website is like literally you can't just type in clothing manufacturer and pop like 100 of them pops up.
Yeah.
Um, but it's still
Now it's
crazy
super
for a
simple.
16-year-old. Super
Mm-hmm.
simple. You go to Alibaba,
Mm-hmm.
you go to these websites and like type in literally whatever you want, custom T-shirt. That's what kind of
Yeah.
frustrates me when I get like kids like, hey, where'd you get your stuff made? Like, bro, have you tried Google? Have you tried looking it up online? I was like, how lazy can you be? Like,
Literally.
man, like they just want the easy way out, right? I'm like, bro, like it's easy. You can look everything up. Like you can make a surfboard if you want to. Um,
Yeah,
that's
100%.
crazy.
Googling it should always be like step number one because you'll probably find you won't have to have step number two. You find the answers in the first Google.
Yeah. And how's the brand gone like in terms of in 7 years? I mean, like, have you look at rebranding? Have you looked into the growth? Like, what's your next strategy?
So at the moment, it's had huge ups and downs, and that like looking back in retrospect, that's just been based off my own consistency. When my
Mm,
like focus is fully on the brand, like we're doing well, I'm making great connections and all that kind of stuff. Our creative vision is solid,
yeah,
and like then there's also periods where my attention is elsewhere, or like obviously
mm,
being young, like I'm still go through these stages where maybe
yeah,
fashion isn't my thing, or like what I mean. So it's been a roller coaster ride, definitely. But coming back to it now, especially at the last year, I've really kind of reignited that passion in the space, made some great connections, and like I was saying to you briefly before we started recording, I'm going through that stage now where. I wanted to take the brand in a new direction. Like I've got a jewelry collection that we're nearly going into manufacturing with at the moment, and I'm just really trying to transition the brand style to suit my strengths. Like the last couple of collections, I was living in Sydney, so I kind of designed it for that city streetwear style. Now I'm living in like tropical Gold Coast, and it just feels like more natural to kind of maybe transition the brand
it's a
style
different
to
demographics there as well, like different
100%.
lifestyle. But also
Yeah,
like
yeah.
you're reaching that 7 year mark where normally as a business you need to rebrand every 5 7 years, but now
Hmm.
because it's so quick, fashion's so quick, you almost have to rebrand every 3 years.
Hmm.
Like you have to evolve the collection almost nowadays. Like you have to evolve the collection every season. Like
Hmm.
first season will be like this, and then the second season you have to completely change the look, and third season you have to. It's just so fast right now, and that's the thing. Like with man, I get a lot of kids ask, "How do you start a brand?" Like, look, you know how to start a brand. It's easy to start a brand nowadays. It's hard to maintain a brand, and it's hard to grow the brand
Hmm.
without any proper strategies implemented. So this is something like, we always talk, even for us, it's like, man, we've been 7, 8 years now, and only just seeing that massive like little spike and hype behind the brand,
Mm-hmm.
that's just over grinding, just kind of creating that brand awareness, building that emotional attachment to the brand rather than just like producing and printing. And it's a patient game. It's a marathon,
Yeah.
like a lot and people who got into the fashion business, they think it's going to be quick. They all think they're going to be the next Virgil Abloh, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't see like the hard work Virgil was working before, before he became Virgil, before
Yeah,
he became
exactly.
Off-White and Louis Vuitton. So this is that, but they don't see the hard work. They just see the top of the iceberg and then see the bottom of the ice.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
It's
but
like
yeah,
any business model. Yeah.
it's like any business.
Yeah.
It just out in our business, it's a lot more cutthroat because there's so many competitions. And
Mm-hmm.
if you don't have any niche or the right demographics, it's going to be hard to maintain the brand.
100%.
For us, it's like we always look at like you were targeting the demographic of like that cool kids, but not really
Mm-hmm.
that cool kids, but it's more like
Mm-hmm.
that interesting fashion people. But then that's only make up like 3-5% of the population, really, like the
Mm-hmm.
demographics that we're targeting, the fashion demographics. And then you got brands that are like more in activewear, streetwear, they play around in the bottom of the pyramid. But this is where the volume is. That's why you see
Mm-hmm.
brands like, say, like Gymshark is $1 billion worth because their market is like here. They're not trying to be
Yeah.
like the cool, like the market is on point and everything. But um, and then you
Yeah.
got other brands just super niche, like super fashion. They're like only playing that top bit. I guess
100%.
where do you want
And
to?
like,
How do you get? Yeah, go on.
yeah, so I was just about to, I think, answer the question you're about to ask me. So basically, where I see myself kind of, I'm a little bit torn, and I'm glad we're having this conversation because at the moment, I will feel like my interests personally are really, really heavily into personal development, kind of consciousness, all that kind of stuff. And I want to try and utilize some of that, I suppose, ideology in the brand. But then, like what you were just saying then about the pyramid, it's like there's very few people that are that way inclined, and then let alone people that are also fashion orientated, that are also into like the kind of consciousness and universe energy and all that kind of stuff. So I'm undecided whether I want to keep my brand kind of a little bit broader or whether I want to niche down because like my heart's telling me to niche
Yeah.
down, you know?
Yeah. Well, for me, it's like I love that sort of stuff. I'm a big
Mm-hmm.
believer like law of attraction and all
Yeah.
that stuff in business, especially in, like in my life. That's where I implement. But I keep that separate to like the business,
Mm-hmm.
to the brand. Like that's my personal brand. I love that sort of like consciousness and all that stuff and law of attraction, vibration. Like I love doing personal development stuff. That's for
Mm-hmm.
me like my goal, my side goal as a human being. I want to inspire people like Tony Robbins, Jim
Wow.
Rohn,
Yeah.
like Zig Ziglar and all that stuff. That I want to be able to like really because I've through the years I've kind of like picked up all these tools that I never used to have before.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, that's just Julie in the back. But I want to be able to like help people using the tools that I learned. But the
Mm-hmm.
brand itself is just a completely different thing that I'm building. Do you know what I mean? Like so, the
Yeah.
brand itself, I keep it separate because fashion, it's for me just like it makes people feel good because they're wearing cool stuff, and like
Mm-hmm.
I'm just being selfish in a way. So I want to wear cool stuff that I make, and I want
Mm-hmm.
people to enjoy it too. But then whether it's gonna touch people the same way as my personal development sort of brand, it's completely different.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I guess like for you, like if you want to combine it, you can. Like you can have that
Mm-hmm.
inspiring things on your personal development stuff through fashion. For example, you want to inspire people through your clothing, you can too. It's like
Yeah.
that's a niche there. That itself is a super niche that I don't see a lot of brands doing.
Mm-hmm.
But whether it translates to business, who knows, right? Because at the end, you got to make a business. If you bring
Mm-hmm.
too niche, there's like I look at a restaurant. If the restaurant, the chef is being like too complicated, too creative with his dishes, no one's gonna eat it
Mm-hmm.
because they're like, "What is this dish?" Like if you look at every fine dining restaurant, they always have 2 to 3 courses that are familiar. You get the duck breast, the steak, and
Mm.
whatever the pasta, right? So that's how I look at the business as well. Like even with the brand. Um, but yeah, like I'm intrigued. Like what you doing with the all that sort of stuff, like personal.
Mm-hmm.
How niche do you want? Who's your demographic?
So basically, like my first touch into joining that kind of ideology with the brand is with this podcast, basically. So this before the money is like a funnel into the brand. I don't plan on getting outside sponsorships and all that kind of stuff. This is like a hectic passion project for me to meet and converse with people like yourself and have these kind of conversations and really allow my kind of, I suppose, beliefs and ideologies to be heard by the brand, where typically, they might they'll just see like the photo shoots and they see our designs and all that kind of stuff. They don't really get to understand like the kind of thought process that goes into the clothing that we make. So this podcast is my first kind of attempt and it's being extremely well received. But what I'm finding is it's almost carving out its own business structure separate to the brand. So that's what's kind of got me on the fence a little bit of whether maybe I want to keep the brand like and let it build its own ideology, and then maybe me express my kind of I suppose to the general population my weirdness in the podcast, and keep them kind of the separate brands. But yeah, so basically I love breath work. I've always loved kind of reading, and I'm a fucking knowledge addict. I get right around that shit. And I see you guys, you're doing like your cold swims and all that kind of stuff. Like, so cool, man. So I get
and
right
that's
around
the thing
what
that
you're
I
doing.
love, man. Yeah, like with the community-based things, I love doing. I love like just seeing like that community, and these communities like Cold Nips, for example, in Perth, the boys just kind of like doing it for just kind of bridging, and they're encouraging people like. So basically, we just rock up to the beach at 5 o'clock, and they're doing breath work, like yoga, and then at 5:45, everyone just run into the water, and then after that, we get coffee, and they kind of like encourage us to, hey, you have to meet new people, you have to say hi to some randoms, and that's amazing, man. Like we don't get that sort of community. A lot of times, just kind of like very, a lot of communities quite standoffish. Like they're very cultish in a way. And while these guys like, no, we're open. Like everyone's welcome to come, and that's dope, man. And that's why I love getting behind the boys. Just kind of like giving them a lot of love.
100%.
But but that's the thing, man. Like if you have a purpose, say with your podcast, my biggest goal is not just to make money, but just like how valuable can you be as a person to the community and to the world, right? So it's like, and the money's gonna come regardless. Like if you're valuable enough, if you're changing people's lives, like Steve Jobs with the iPhone, money is gonna come anyways. But if you're just doing it for like, a lot of people just chasing the money, but they're not really like how valuable are you as a person, as a business? It doesn't make sense to me. Like when they're like just chasing for them, I just want to make $10 million. Like, well, what are you bring to the table? You can't just have $10 million.
Exactly.
But if you're just focusing on, say, for us, is like that's how we see the brand. We just like our brand. We just want to like deliver. Sounds cheesy, but like we actually trying to deliver good quality stuff that without being too overpriced, so people can afford it and appreciate it. But also just like just like what you're doing, we're trying to inspire the youth through our work. That's why I'm using my social media to kind of like, hey, look, anyone can do this without any fashion background. I don't have a fashion background. I just kind of like jump into the deep end, just like, what, fuck it, I'm just gonna like try it. If it doesn't work, I'm still young. I can just try other stuff. If that doesn't work, I can still try other stuff. But, you know what I mean? It's just the opportunity is endless. Well, I was like, we were kind of like, I guess, indoctrinated by our parents and the society. Hey, look, you got to decide what you want to do, when you're 18, right? And like, dude, 18, you're still a kid. I was still playing video games at 18. How the hell did I know what to do? I still kind of like, what do I want to do when I grow up? Even now, I'm still thinking, what do I want to do when I grow up? Like I want to do other stuff. We're venturing out. That's why we're venturing out to cafe. We're opening cafe. Now NFT just popped up. Hey, we want to be a part of that world to diversify to the metaverse. So NFT is kind of like what we're working on at the moment, but it's still a blank canvas. Like what else can we do? So we're making our own vodka brand. Like Cabin Noir vodka. We're working on that. So it's just it's endless. If you look at Leonardo da Vinci, he's not just an artist. He's an inventor. He's just a philosopher. He's like everything. And then you look at his inventions, like, holy fuck, how the hell did he do all that on top of his like painting and stuff like that? It's mind blowing. So as a creative, like, do you want to do various other things? You just want to create.
And that's the thing. Like trials of a creative, and I definitely went through this. Hence why I kind of was saying my focus waned from the brand at some stages, because it's like, as a creative, like I'm just rubbernecking all the time. It's like, oh, I want to do that. Oh, I want to do that. Oh, that's so exciting. I
Mm-hmm.
love doing such and such. So it's really just that discipline to try and focus in and build a foundation in something to begin with, so that you have the resources and the capabilities to then go expand out into like other areas, basically. That's really
Yeah.
interesting. So I also want to ask you, what kind of role do you think fashion plays in society? Because the reason why I'm so heavily involved in fashion, the reason what really ignited me about it is the fact that, like, you can literally change somebody's day. You can change their mood based on like how much effort you put into a particular clothing piece. So I want to kind of know, what kind of role does fashion play in society, in your opinion?
Well, for me, it started off as, like trying to stand out, like, coming to Australia, like, I was a, you know, first gen immigrant, really, like knowing no English, nothing. That was like already we're already like at a disadvantage there. I'm like, all right, cool. We need something to prove here. Do you know what I mean? Like a lot of bullying and all that, and then it's like that's when we kind of like, all right, cool. Then we got to step it up, and then like, and I noticed like the kids usually get bullied. They have a way of to express through their fashion, right? Whether it's you're in a goth community or an emo community, whatever you call it, the punk
Yeah.
community. Like those at the time they were kind of like the minority of that sort of. We're not in the jocks cool group.
Hmm.
So I kind of relate a little bit with those sort of subcultures, right? But then when I started dancing into the break, like b-boying, or most people call break dancing, that's when it really changed the whole. That's when I really got into fashion, but I didn't know I was in fashion. But we just remember like my mentors used to go, "Yo, Eddie, like when you go to a jam or competition, we gotta like rock fresh. Your hat you has to match your shoes or whatever. It has to
Yeah.
match. It has to look dope. So when you rock to the club, they'll be like, oh shit, who's that? Like you just look fly, you just look fresh. And that's
Hmm.
how I got into fashion. Just how I kind of learned, right? We have to stand out. We have to peacock whenever we go, right? So
Hmm.
that was like my first introduction to it. And then that's when I realized, man, like fashion play a big part in this culture, especially in hip hop.
Hmm.
That's why like a lot of hip hop artists, the fashion is like huge. Kanye's heavily into that, but Kanye was kind of like influenced by the generation of the b boys back then. Like the '70s b boys, '80 b boys. They kind of like really inspired, the Run DMCs, the LL Cool J's, and they inspired Kanye West. So all these generations that came from like sort of the '60s, '70s b boys, they used to dress up. And that's how I kind of like learn the history. Like, man, like fashion, there's a lot of power behind it. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
There's like when you're wearing go shit like into the club, they go, oh, that's somebody. Back in the days, in the hip hop days, in the '70s, like the pimps and the gangsters were wearing the cool shit. They're wearing the big bling, the cane, and like the
Hmm.
fur coat, and now the celebrities wearing that sort of cool shit, right? So it just makes you feel so good. And this is why I don't understand like why guys here don't peacock. I mean,
Hmm.
male peacocks have the big feathers. Female peacocks don't have the
Hmm.
big feathers. Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean? So us as male, we should be peacocking more. I don't get it. Um, but again, there was like an era where if I wear something different, if I wear like nail polish back at high school, I get picked on. I get bullied.
Hmm.
People call you names, all these bullshit names. And I'm like, I don't give a fuck. Like, nowadays, like, but back then you feel like you have to conform by what the kids are saying, right? Just like
Yeah.
a lot, and it's hard to break away from that. But nowadays, it's like, man, there's so much power. I'm looking at these kids. Like, I look at, um, leaders like Jaden Smith and stuff. He's wearing a skirt and stuff. He doesn't give a fuck. Like, he's just trying to change the culture, and
Hmm.
I love that nowadays. We're in a good phase now. Whilst before, we're just so much harder to break through fashion. But it's such a powerful tool, man. Like, it's not just an expression; it's a movement. You can use that as a political movement. You look at Vivian Westwood was looking at it as a movement. Um, and it's a statement. I mean, even Kanye using it as a statement. So it's just more powerful than it's very, very powerful. People just underestimate that. It's a lot of people who don't get it. They just see it. Oh man, it's just a very vain thing. It's all about like you trying to like impress people. Like they're just seeing the surface level, but they don't see the deeper level of how powerful fashion can be.
Yeah, no, and it's been so pivotal in my life. It's like when I'm kind of dressed up and I go out and like you see people looking and stuff like that. It's just like call it vain, call it whatever it is. You feel good. Like you put effort into the way you present yourself to the world,
Mm.
and the world kind of looks back at you brightly. It's the
Yeah.
way it works. Fashion
The
has
problem
always
is
been key.
we get
Yeah,
caught up in the capitalism of it, where we're like, man, it feels good, but then I wanna keep buying new shit, so we look fresh every week, and then you
yeah.
spend so much money, and then you get caught up, and before you know, it, man, your wardrobe's full.
That's why you start a
And I'm
brand,
guilty of
man.
that.
That's why you start a brand so you can
Exactly.
dress yourself.
Well, yeah, that's exactly right. That's why we're
Mhm,
that's why I told the crew, it's like, man, like I wanna wear fur jackets, I wanna wear fur coats. Like instead of
mhm,
spending money on someone else's brand, why don't you create your own fur coat and like all this stuff?
mhm,
But that's exactly right. That's
mhm.
one of the biggest reasons why we started brand.
Yeah, definitely. So, from like what I'm hearing you say, there's probably lots of overlaps in like similarities between dance and fashion. What's your kind of viewpoint on that?
Man, like I said, like
Yeah,
because I'm a big historian of hip hop, where it came from
yeah,
and stuff like that, like, and I go deep into like the 50s, the 60s of hip hop, the beginning of hip hop,
hmm,
and why, and back then hip hop like clothing and outfit has a lot of context behind it. For example, in the 90s, the b-boys used to roll up their left leg, right,
hmm,
of their pants, and it was a statement thing. And they put roll up your left leg, you're a b-boy. They're like, oh shit, that's b-boy. But it also, there was a whole history why they roll up their sleeves, because in New York, when they're riding bike with the baggy jeans, they used to get caught up in the chain.
hmm,
So on the left leg, they would just roll one leg up, stuff like that. And then, like, for example, in the 70s and the 80s, they used to wear trousers with like permanent crease on the legs.
hmm,
So the kids used to like stitch up the permanent crease, so their pants always look brand new, because you can see that crease line.
hmm.
Stuff like that I really love. And there's a lot of things that has history. Like, so back then when we used to see people wearing a certain thing, we go, oh, um, that guy knows what he's doing because he lays his shoes a certain way. Do you know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like, oh, that guy knows what he's doing because he wears his hat. Like, for example, if I'm wearing my hat, like, if I see another guy wearing a hat like this, I'll wear it like a bit higher. So I'm like, I'll wear it like this. If I see
Hmm.
someone else wearing like that, I'll probably like tilt it like this. So that was like a hip hop thing, right?
Hmm.
So they always want to have like a little edge on how do they dress. If you hear what Run DMC was saying, the reason why they're wearing the Adidas shell toes without laces because it's to pay tribute and homage to the people in the jail where they can't have laces in their on the shoes because then a lot of people like tend to hang themselves up and use
Yeah,
that for as a contraband kind of thing. So like learning all these things like with context that give us that for me is a really really interesting. But now the context is lost. It's just all about style. So
yeah,
I'm seeing like when I go to Fashion Week, I see all these kids, young kids, they're dressing like b-boys. I'm like, dude, like do you know the history behind it? Why it's like, why are you wearing a hat like that? Why are you wearing your pants like that? Well, there's so many like history behind every little thing. Why are you wearing a Kangol bucket hat? Or these came,
yeah.
yeah. There's a lot of history. If you look at like Amelia Dor, a great brand, they just I just saw like LVMH just bought into it.
Hmm.
But the guy knows what he's doing, right? Because um, the whole style is based on a 70s, 80s hip hop. And then I see the campaign, they're using a particular song. So when I see that campaign, I go, all right, the creative director behind it knows exactly what he's doing. He knows
Hmm.
the context, the hip hop history behind it. While a lot of kids nowadays just like they're releasing things without any context. Um, for me, like I don't understand much about the skate culture, but I can relate to a lot of the skaters and stuff like that, and I can tell why they're wearing pants certain way, why they're wearing the shoes certain way. Do you know what I mean? All these things kind of like have a context, and there's a
Hmm.
way communicating, right? So you can tell like, all right, that guy's a skater, that guy's a surfer, that guy is a punk rock, in a punk rock, scene. So, but now it just like the style has been lost, and everyone's kind of like just emulating what's popular at the moment.
Mm.
So nowadays, I can't even tell who's in what crew and what subculture because it's so mixed.
Yeah, that's the thing. They see like a celebrity or an influencer wearing a certain kind of style, and all of a sudden, that's popping off for a while without knowing like the history behind it, which is great. It's still kind of paying homage to the history in a certain sense. Like it's great to see these styles live on, but at
Yeah.
the same time as well, hearing you articulate your knowledge and of the history of things just gives it so much more value,
Do you remember when ASAP Rocky was like, man, I don't care. I'm wearing like a rock and roll band t-shirt, but I don't even
Hmm.
listen to it.
Yeah,
And
that's
because of
most
that, now all
people,
the kids
man.
just
Yeah.
like, yeah. And then everyone started wearing Megadeth t-shirt and
Yeah.
like all Metallica t-shirts, and that was like that's the start of the uh, that sort of
Mm.
rock and roll band
Mm.
t-shirt
Like, how
phase
many people wear
without finding it
Harley
funny.
tees and wouldn't have a clue how to ride a bike,
Not a clue, and yeah, so
100%, man.
it's just funny. It just becomes more like an aesthetic fashion statement thing
Yeah,
rather than like, hey, I represent something. Do you know what I mean? Like back
exactly.
then when we wear like Metallica t-shirt, I'm a big Metallica fan or
Hmm.
whatever.
Exactly. And so, one thing as well, like you've just signed Comme des Garçons into your store. Congratulations.
Thank you. So the whole history
Yeah.
was we were one of the first stores to bring in like Comme des Garçons, the play line. So we've been
Hmm.
having a massive got a good relationship with Comme des Garçons. But I just remember there was one time when I went to Paris, I saw Rei Kawakubo from Comme des Garçons. And oh my God, that's the goddess of fashion, Rei Kawakubo is in Paris. I just want to meet her, so I said hi, whatever, and I just remember her going to so there's like in the Comme des Garçons showroom, there's like many. Comme des Garçons has about 18 lines,
Hmm.
and we're placing orders from the play showroom, but then it's also a shirt showroom, black line, and then the main room was the En Plus, and that's where Rei Kawakubo was. And I'm like,
Hmm.
one day I wanna be where the big dogs are playing, the big dogs are
Hmm.
placing orders, which is in the En Plus section. So it took us about 7, 8 years to kind of finally feel ready to buy En Plus. But yeah, so we're super
Hmm.
stoked about that whole the fact that we got it.
So, when you say it took you 7 years to feel ready, what do you think's different now? Do you think?
So we were in like back then we were in a smaller store in a laneway, and at the time the laneway was super cool, super edgy, but we weren't ready to be because Comme des Garçons en plus are very expensive. They're
Hmm.
like a shirt would be like $1,000 and stuff like that. And we didn't have the demographic for it, the customer base. But now we're in this new location because we moved a couple of years ago right behind
Hmm.
Louis Vuitton. Gucci's moving in next door, Chanel's next door, Tiffany's behind us. So like now we feel a bit more ready to expand our luxury designer brands.
Hmm.
And Omplu's always been our number one target to get.
Yeah. Wow, that's interesting. So, when you first opened up the store, were you running the brand like the Cabernet Noir brand beforehand, or did that start up at the same time as the store?
No, I mean that started like the Cabinet brand started off as like a little hobby beforehand. It
Hmm.
was just like, hey, want to make a I think our first design was like CN, but with the Cartoon Network logo.
Yeah.
We just got Cabinet, but it's like CN with the
Yeah.
Cartoon Network logo on it. That went off like crazy, and we had cab,
Mhm.
and we put a yellow taxi cab reference to it, and it just sold real quick. But it was just like as a hobby. And then I just remember a couple of my friends from like a while ago, they have their own brand called Banks. And then they're just like, hey, Eddie, like, I want to help you like run your brand. Like, I can help you grow with the thing because we have design and stuff. We can help you out. I'm like, oh, sick, because I don't have time to kind of design because we used to design all ourselves. I used to design all
Mhm.
ourselves and then do vector drawing and all that. But as I get busy, I just kind of like don't have time to design and everything produce myself. So I'm like, you know what? If you can help me out, it'll save me a lot of time.
Mhm.
And yeah, so we've been working collectively together, and now we form a team, and we have like a design studio. Um, so yeah, like we work together really well. Where I give them like a blueprint of how to structure the brand. Um, where we
Yeah.
go, all right, cool. It's from to kind of like give them like a timeline of how to run the brand properly. So for example, we need to design by this time, and then after we need to do sampling, and after we've done sampling we need to do the editorial and assets. Once we have the assets, then we can start the selling period. Once we have the selling period, then we have to produce it, and then
Mhm.
we send it to the source. So these are kind of like things that you have to consider before you get into the market.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we officially started going full blast with the brand with the new team probably about 2 years ago. But last year we just first signed with our agency based in London, and they just to help us distribute the brand.
Mhm.
Because we want to strategize putting the brand into different locations, different stores, how we see fitting. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
still a lot of room for improvement. And the big thing for us was like the other day, our agency was like, "Hey, by the way, Jay-Z just bought Cab Noir stuff." I'm like, "What? That's huge,"
That is
which is insane for
sick.
us. We're like, the crew
Yeah.
was like, "Fuck yeah, Jay-Z just bought it. Oh, we could have given him free stuff, but the fact that
Yeah.
he bought it was even better."
Yeah.
Which is a lot of growth. It's for us, it's still a massive learning curve. Like there's a lot of adjustments we have to do in terms of like logistics, um, finance, all that stuff.
hmm Yeah, it's fantastic. And like this, feel like this flows on to kind of what you've just answered there. So I see you got like Sylvester and all that kind of stuff
Yeah.
working with you guys. So how
Mhm.
how do you kind of help support those guys in your business as well? Because obviously you give them your inside knowledge of timelining for brands and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
how do you guys work synergistically with having so many different brands working under the same roof?
We're just working basically on the Cab
Yeah.
Noir stuff and Banks, so we only have two
Yeah.
brands really under our
Okay.
umbrella. Um, but then again, we can, it helps like because we have two different directions with the brands. Like Banks
hmm
doing like they have their own target customers, and Cab Noir we have our own target customer. So it's pretty easy to do.
hmm
But it gives me a lot of freedom to kind of like give like because I'm like for me it's like I'm pretty good at like predicting the next trend, I guess. Like I can see
hmm
it from miles away. All right, this is going to be big next season, and that's the sort of thing that I bring to the crew and the design team. I believe next season this is going to be hot. So
hmm
let's work around this theme and this collection based on this. Um, and then the creative designers will be like, "Holy crap! All right, cool. This is the
Yeah.
sandbox. Now we're gonna make what we can from that sandbox."
hmm
So my role is kind of like give them that sandbox and give them that. All
Yeah.
right, cool. This is but make sure you work around this, but then go
Yeah.
as creative as you can be.
Yeah. And is that just like intuitive for you, or is there certain sectors that you look at? Like, is there certain icons that are pretty powerful in determining trends? Like,
Not really, but maybe just based on, yeah, there's a lot of things like how the culture
mhm,
is moving, how
yeah.
the music scene is changing, and I'm seeing like what's the influence now, who's the biggest influencer now, like what are they feeling? You're
hmm
looking at the key characters in the world right now, so what's happening in the world? Um, just trying to like at the end of the day, you want to wear stuff that, like for example, why do you go shopping? What grabs your attention as a consumer? For me, I love that. For example, next season we're building this collection based on nostalgia. Do you know what I
hmm
mean? Like, there's a lot of things that kind of coming back. You see these retro video games coming back, and you see a lot of tributes coming back. So there's like a
hmm
nostalgic thing from the 90s, the 80s, the 70s. Even like disco is so big right now.
Yeah.
People like kids are like
Everyone's getting on flare
21,
jeans.
22-year-olds get onto, yeah. I'm like, dude,
Yeah.
disco, like they weren't
Yeah.
even born in the 70s, but
Yeah.
everyone's listening to music and like disco's cool. I'm like, you know what? Disco wasn't cool.
hmm
There's a death to disco back in 70s. Like they were like, man, like they hated disco era, but now in
hmm
2020, it's like, fuck, disco's back. Um, so I feel like there's a whole nostalgia thing, but it's again, I look at because I'm pretty much, I look at the scene, I look at the culture, I look at the lifestyle, and based on that, I'll be like, all right, cool. I think this is gonna be cool for this collection. So
Yeah.
it just kind of like being in trend. Like I've said before in one of my videos, like you want to be in trend, you don't want to be too far ahead of the trend, because once you're too far ahead of the trend, no one's gonna buy it. No one can like be able to
hmm
like relate to it if you're too far ahead.
Yeah, that was a problem that I had when I first manufactured my first collection, basically. So I was looking at what was happening in like Europe, specifically like UK and stuff like that, and I was like, yeah, I'll design stuff like that. I'll be early, and then I dropped it, and no one here in Australia was vibing that style, But then say like a year and a half, 2 years later, that's when it started selling. But I had to sit on stock for like two
Yeah.
years. Yeah,
Man, I
all the
remember
time.
like when we started the brand Always 2009, that was my first brand. And pocket tees was like the biggest thing ever. Um,
Mhm.
and everyone's doing pocket tees. I'm like, holy shit. But then we were doing pocket tees like years before everyone's doing like, man, I think pocket tees gonna be good. And then like again, my intuition was really like kicking at the time, man, pocket tees gonna be big. And then we released it again, like you said,
Mhm.
didn't sell out. and then Pocket Tees finally caught on, and we will release the same thing that we've been having in stock for a while. I'm like, boom, sold out straight away.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy. That's why like now we're kind of like, all right, cool. Let's whatever's hype at the moment. Let's just sit on it. So I mean,
Yeah.
like with the we were doing a collaboration with Rusty, for example, and like that bright green is really in at the moment. So I think it was in last season. So we've
Mm-hmm.
got 2 more seasons to like squeeze the fuck out of that bright green
Yeah.
color, which we're doing now. We're like, all right, cool.
Mm-hmm.
This is perfect timing because that green is still so relevant at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it being in trend rather than being in front too far ahead of the trend. And I see it in like big businesses, big corporations like LVMH. Like Louis Vuitton's doing anything that's relevant now rather than like they're not doing anything progressive. They're
Mm-hmm.
just doing what's cool right now. That's what
Yeah.
I've noticed.
How do you think the metaverse is going to like affect our style like in the real world? Because obviously everyone's becoming so kind of hyper futuristic in the way that they're
Mm.
viewing art and all that kind of stuff. Do you think that'll carry over into the real world and how we present ourselves?
It's an interesting one because I don't think
Mhm.
we're gonna go into the metaverse, be immersed in the metaverse just yet because the technology is not here. Like
Mhm.
what Mark Zuckerberg is saying, they want to incorporate the Oculus and stuff like that, like the contact lenses and the glasses. But how many
Mhm.
people want to put contact lenses and glasses to experience AR and VR?
Mhm.
So the technology is not there yet. But right now, what people are saying with the metaverse is they just using this for like an art gallery thing, art collection thing, but also in the music sense where, or if you're an artist or a musician, you can use that to kind of get an additional royalty income, I guess.
Mhm.
But it's still such a baby face. Like like we're brainstorming with some different companies at the moment, like what we can do in fashion. But no one could give a clear answer because it's such a blank canvas at the moment. If, say, for
Yeah.
example, you're in the same era as when internet first came out, no one knew you can sell, products online because
Mhm.
that wasn't accessible at the time. They just know as people, all right, we're just making blog and writing stuff and jump in and post it online.
Mm.
And I think that's what the NFTs and the cryptos and stuff are at the moment. So we don't have any clear direction where it's going yet.
Yeah, exactly. And same as like if you were like one of the first online that were actually doing commerce back then, you made a lot of money, like in proportion
Mm.
to the amount of people that were on there back at that time. But
Yeah.
now, like, yeah, it's going to be a little while before we can plug into the metaverse like in an effective way that the average person is going to want to do that. But
Hmm.
with Elon Musk's Neuralink, I see when that kind of rolls out, that's going to make the connection to the metaverse like seamless. It's going to reach a point where there's the real world and the metaverse are almost
Yeah.
indistinguishable from each other. You know,
Yeah. But how far away is that, right? Because
yeah,
um,
that's
even like a lot
probably
of
at
the people
least eight
working for
years.
Elon was like, I don't want to put stuff in my head. Like
Yeah,
so it's going to be decades at least
yeah,
before we see it in we see everyone, well, not everyone, but we see a lot of people start implementing it.
hmm
But we'll see, man. Like I'm intrigued, but I want to be a part of this movement rather than like being too late to jump
hmm
on board. Um, and the problem is because so hype, everyone's getting on that train at the moment.
mm,
And it's a red flag to me. Like, man, like people putting a lot of money on NFTs. Bro,
yeah,
what happened when these art NFT that you just bought is not going to be worth anything in
hmm
5 years because oversaturation and stuff like that.
yeah,
They're holding it in like as if like it's a one and only. But then like, dude, there's so many projects coming up
mm.
on NFTs and cryptos. Like these gonna be a lot of oversaturations.
Yeah, that's the thing is that so like I've been investing in NFTs and stuff like that for like the last 8 months or so, and one of the projects I invested in the last couple of months, the founder like disappeared. So that particular project value just went from,
Yeah,
I thought I was making awesome gains, and then overnight it disappeared because the trust factor was lost.
yeah,
And that's all this market is built upon. It's just like
mm,
like the hype of the investors. Basically the price is determined by the people buying it, same as like the whole
yeah.
cryptocurrency market basically. So it's interesting to see where it goes, but it's early days, and it's still bound to have some kind of like correction. The technology
I
is
will only,
exciting. you know
yeah.
yeah.
But the thing is, like, I feel like we're just the sheep here. Like, if I want to invest in the NFT and crypto, I want to be actually working in Silicon Valley where I'm like
Mm-hmm.
hanging around with these people to know what they're doing, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
they're like in the inner circle who's dictating all these movements. Well, we're just like the sheep, just oh man, they're buying, all right, we're following, but then like they don't know
Yeah.
the truth. Like for example, everyone's oh man, jump on Sandbox because Snoop Dogg's is having the biggest, real
Mm-hmm.
estate there. Yeah, but do you think Snoop Dogg's paying that? No way. They got Snoop Dogg to create that real estate, so guys like you buy
Mm-hmm.
into it. Do you know what I mean? And they're
Yeah.
taking your money, and Snoop Dogg's getting a cut from it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and Snoop Dogg's it's in that sort of inner circle. He's not sheeps like us. They're making
Mm-hmm.
money on sheeps like us to invest.
Yeah.
That's why I'm like, yeah, I'm not rushing into it yet
Yeah,
until there's
exactly.
an exact like thing that I know what I'm doing.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome, man. So, another question I have for you basically is like, has there been any particular kind of failure in the last, 8 or so years that is, at the time may have been like really painful, but has actually in retrospect led you on to a success or open up an opportunity for you?
Man, for sure. I mean, there was like I can talk about it now because I don't care anymore. But we used to do back when we used to do a lot of sneakers, and sneakers were like my thing back then. Like
Hmm.
my goal was trying to have Nike account, big Adidas account, stuff like that. And at one stage, we had all these big accounts, like the Nike Jordans, the hottest release, the hottest Yeezy releases, and stuff like that. But I became too dictated by these big companies. Like, all right, in order for you, for example, Adidas would be like, in order for you to stock Yeezys, to sell Yeezys, you need to buy all this other junk. And I'm like, all right, and I was buying into it because I was making profit on the
Hmm.
Yeezys. And same with Nike. In order for you to get Jordans, you need to buy this much to get this. And then it's like the junk that we didn't want was costing us a lot of money.
Hmm.
Just to make what? To make 10 grand profit, we lost like 50 grand. So it
Hmm.
wasn't viable as a business. And we just went back and forth with these big major sneaker company. And we're like, oh man, come on, guys. Like, you need to help us out. It needs to be a collaboration rather than like you're dictating what for us, how to work our business. But yeah, so that was painful. Like, that was like leaving like a bitter taste on my mouth, really,
Hmm.
because like I love, having these brands on board. But because of that, actually opened up a lot of doors. When we stopped becoming a sneaker store, then now becoming more of a fashion store. Because of that, it allows us to get me and Comme des Garçons on Plus,
Hmm.
um, getting all these other brands that I look up to. And now I don't even want to be a sneaker store anymore. Like, because we've evolved in a way that we're established brand, and now we're focusing on our own brand, and that's going to be my next big thing. It's like, why am I
Hmm.
selling Adidas like Yeezys and Jordans and stuff when essentially I would love to like make my own sneakers. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's more of a freedom that like I would enjoy more than looking up to like stocking all these brands. So that was the growth. That was the painful thing, letting go a lot of these big brands, even letting go of Off White. We were the first store in Australia to bring Off White in, and we're the first store to actually discontinue working with Off White. Um, so these
Oh
are
wow.
these are lessons that I learned, and even like just the financial of the store. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just buying a lot of stock because I was like so excited. I bring every brand, every cool brand into store, but I didn't really
Hmm.
look at it as like I didn't really study, how well the brand's doing. So I was just getting all these brands because some cool brands in Europe and US, they don't necessarily sell in Australia. We have a different demographics here. We have a different lifestyle here. So the Perth in
Hmm.
WA in Perth, we don't wear like what the people are wearing in Europe. So all these technical stuff, all this contemporary fashion stuff that we used to bring in, they just sit there and they just never just move. We end up having to discount them. So these are the things that I learned through over the years. And now like with the growth of our brand, we noticed like, holy fuck, like Cab Noir now are taking over all our top brands that we're beating
Hmm.
Stone Island, Comme des Garçons, all the best brands. I'm like, holy shit, why am I investing in other brands when we can
Yeah.
invest in our own brand and people want to wear our own brand? Now they come to the store, it's like, hey, where's the Cab Noir stuff? They don't look for Stone Island anymore. They look for our stuff.
Hmm.
So this is where we go, all right, we'll switch the business model now. So we have to evolve.
Yeah.
Like I said, now every 3, 5 years, or 5, 7 years, and now it's like every 3, 5 years. But for us now, every year we have to evolve because fashion
Hmm.
is so quick. It evolves so quick.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Well, I suppose your brand's going well because you got the finger on the pulse. Like you're in the heart of the culture. You understand what's going on. And the people can really like. One thing that I've learned as well about fashion is like people don't buy necessarily the look; they buy into the meaning behind the look. Like that goes back to
Yeah,
everything you were saying
that's
in
the
the
key.
beginning.
Mhm.
Yeah, they're
And you have to
buying
be
into it.
transparent, like
Hmm.
back then, like you want to be like a lot of the founders and the brand owners, they want to be behind the brand. But now, like everyone wants to know who's in front of the brand.
Hmm.
Look at how well Virgil's doing, right? Virgil's such a marketing genius. Um, and to me, he's not a designer, but he's like, man, he's a creative marketing genius. Like,
Hmm.
yeah, he's doing some cool stuff with his fashion and he knows what he's doing. But he's not a Kim Jones. He's not, he's
Hmm.
not Alexander McQueen. He's not like a fashion designer. But man, the stuff that he's doing in terms of, and people go behind him. Like same with Kanye. If Kanye release his label, it goes nuts, right?
Hmm.
And that's like for us, it's like we being transparent. I want people to know, like, all right, we're behind the brand. Sil's doing the design. I've got Othman's doing detailing. I've got Amira doing. So everyone, all the characters in our crew, everyone knows what we're doing because I want like people to kind of know what like who's working. Like if I'm going to a restaurant, I want to know who's cooking my food
Hmm. Yeah.
nowadays, rather
Yeah.
than like so these are like the transparency. I think it's part of the new era that we're in as well. People want to support the brand, like you said, they want to support
Hmm.
who's behind it,
Yeah.
rather than just like what the brand, what the label is.
I'm seeing that trend in all business though, like people, especially
Mm.
I feel like COVID has had a big effect on this. Like people want to support the people, and people want to
I
know
think
where their
it's
money's
already
going.
happening before COVID.
Yeah.
And and I think it was just already there.
Hmm.
Like right now, the reason like people just following, say, for example, Kim Jones now moving around. He's no longer with Louis, right? And we just
Hmm.
like when he left Louis, it's like man, like all right, so now we're following wherever he's at. He's following Dior because he's at Dior now.
Hmm.
So they're following him as a designer. They're following him as a person, as an individual. Um, Same with Eddie Saman. Like I'll follow him. Like man, he moved to Celine doing menswear. Holy fuck, Eddie Saman. He made a difference in YSL. It's Saint Laurent. Now he's with Celine doing menswear. Holy fuck, I want to know what he's doing now. I want to
Hmm.
see how creative he gets with this new line. Do you know what I mean? So, but it was already happening before COVID, I feel like, and I think now COVID it just kind of like makes people just stay at home more and just kind of like learn more about the brand because on their
Yeah.
phone, oh yeah, cool. They see all these articles, hype beefs, Hassan Badi's posting. Ah, now I know who's behind the brand. I'm intrigued what he's
Mm.
doing. Now follow him on the social media, and on social media they're exposing everything they're doing, and then in part will play a big role in their brand. And the same way how we're doing it, like whatever I'm doing, I'm not trying to keep it a secret of what we're doing. Like, dude, like check this out. This is coming up in 6 months, and they go, oh, people go
Yeah.
crazy. Holy shit, it's coming up. Check this is how we do this thing. Check it out. This is the process how you do it. Um, it's yeah, everything's becoming so transparent now, and I think you need to be transparent to get your brand. So we have a saying like me and my one of my best friends used to say, man, we're not trying to sell products here. We're trying to sell emotions.
Hmm.
That's the biggest
Yeah.
key thing, right? When you have that emotional attachment to a product or to a brand, they don't mind spending money on it. But it's a great saying, like we're not trying to sell products, we're trying to sell emotions.
And that goes back to what we were talking about the first half of this episode, how you feel when you're wearing certain clothes, when you're
Mm.
identifying in these communities is like how you feel. And that's like what clothing is about. And that's why it's so
Yeah.
closely related to music and all these other emotional things is because it's an expression of yourself, it's your own identity basically. So do you think like a lot of, do you think like luxury brands have any effect on the trends, or do you think they just kind of ride the wave just like everyone else?
Man, to be honest, they're not even in the forefront of anything.
Yeah.
To me, they're just riding the waves.
Hmm.
Do you know what I mean? It's a business, it's a money making. Yeah, they'll do some crazy stuff or on the runway and stuff, but so they would do like, for example, big brands like Louis Vuitton and their
Hmm.
runway, the couture side. Yeah, they'll do interesting stuff, but then what's making money is the ready to wear stuff. The stuff
Hmm.
that is actually in trend. But they're creating the runway stuff just to get interest as marketing. So that's the marketing expenses.
Yeah.
But the stuff that they're making money on is the ready to wear, the basic, like the t-shirts, the hoodies, the crew necks, all the streetwear stuff. That's what I noticed.
Yeah, definitely. And what color does best in your store? What color garments?
Black.
Black. Yeah.
Black all day. I feel like in Perth we just wear black. This is like,
Yeah.
man, the Perth colorway. We just joke about like we have a crew of boys that always wear black.
Hmm.
And I love it. Like that's why it goes with our brand too. Cabernet Noir, Black Room.
100%.
We love black.
Yeah, no, I've noticed that as well, and like I've expanded into like different colorways and stuff like that, and yeah, they do all right. But like, if you want to sell something out, do it in black.
Yeah, you do
Yeah,
30% of your fun stuff, your color choices, your
yeah,
fun color of the season and stuff, but then 70% of it will be like black,
yeah.
guaranteed.
100%, man. Now, we're moving towards kind of like the hour mark, and I really appreciate your time, bro. I've had a fucking mad chat
Not
with you.
easy,
This has
man. It's
been
been fun.
fantastic.
Yeah.
So, what kind of advice do you think you'd give back to your 18-year-old self?
Oh man, what was I doing 18? I wish like, you know what it is? I wish I had a mentor when I was younger.
Hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Like, and that was like to give me guidance because nowadays there's so many informations out there. You can find mentors online. Like I said, all these guys that I look up to I just watch them on YouTube every day as like a
Hmm.
motivational thing. The Gary V's, the Grant Cardones, the Tony Robbins, the Zig Ziglars, the Jim Rohn. Jim Rohn's a big mentor to me. Um, and these people I don't even know. Just like I
Hmm.
just watch them on YouTube. But if I had someone in real life to kind of like, all right, Eddie, what do you want to do? I'm like, all right, I want to achieve this. Like, how are you gonna do that? I'm like, well, I don't know. And then, all right, let me guide you.
Hmm.
Um, and man, like I wouldn't waste my 10 years figuring out what I want to do.
Hmm.
I feel like just just give like yeah, I wish I had a mentor back then. And for me, just like don't be afraid. I just tell them don't be afraid to make mistakes because mistakes lead you to where you want to be. A lot of people are too scared of failure and stuff. And for me, I failed so many times, and I feel like I've lived like five different lives. Where I was a dancer, I was full time
Yeah.
dancer, and I was doing film video, and I had a degree in film video. I was doing a lot of that for studying. But all these things that I experienced kind of like helped me to be who I am now. So yeah, I would say just don't even worry about it. Get a mentor. Just don't be afraid to try a lot of things. Try
Hmm.
different things. What about you? What would you say?
That is a good question. I feel like I would just say, just I feel like use the current situation you're in as a strength. I feel like
Mm,
early on in my business career, I was like putting up this. I suppose there's no other word for it but charade. Basically, I was putting up the charade that I was, so much further ahead than I actually was, and that shut me off from a lot of the
mm,
opportunities that I could
yeah.
have taken by just saying, "Hey, this is the position that I'm in currently. This is what it is. Get on board," kind of thing. Where rather than having to try to be so much bigger than what I really was.
Yeah, but that's
Mm.
fine, man. Like for
Yeah,
me, I'm a big believer of law of attraction, right? Like,
yeah,
I have like an internal ego and, probably just as big as Kanye. When I used to say things out loud and like with my
yeah.
with my best friends and stuff, I'm comfortable to say, man, I want to do this. And it's like they'll
Hmm.
be like, fuck, you got big dreams. I'm like, bro,
You
if you
need
have big
to.
dreams, then you have
Yeah,
to, man. Like,
yeah.
a lot of people too scared. I'm too scared of, like with law of attraction, there's the funny saying, it's like, man, if there's a genie came to your life and asked you three questions, like what are your three wishes? I said that to my friends, and most of them couldn't even say. You couldn't even
Hmm.
tell me one. I'm like, bro, you know what you want? You can tell me you can get a car, your dream house, or your dream girlfriend. You can even tell me one on the spot. Yeah,
Hmm.
because they're so shook with that question. Oh fuck, I didn't know that. I didn't know
Hmm.
I can ask anything, and
Yeah,
that's a great thing with the law of attraction with the universe, and you can ask whatever you want, and you can just manifest it if you believe it. If you believe you're gonna manifest it, and that's how I manifested most of the things that I've manifested. Things that I've achieved, including the store,
hmm,
including the brand, including my circle of friends, the lifestyle that I want. All these things just like through just envisioning it and putting it out there and designing it
yeah,
visually. Like I visualize everything. Like I can tell you how my dream house is gonna look, the inside
hmm,
and out. What materials I'm gonna use for the floor, the ceiling. I know exactly what car. I can tell exactly what car that I want. I can tell you my dream partner, what she look like. Like
hmm.
I can tell you all these things. And yeah, it's just funny. It's so easy to manifest when you know how to do it.
Yeah, and it's insane now. Like, especially I'm seeing that movement. There's like a global awakening, for lack of another expression. And that's all because like manifestation, it's scientifically proven. If you're that kind of person, you need logic. It's scientifically proven. You know, when you're imagining something, it's saved in your memory bank as a memory. Your brain doesn't distinguish that from something that's already happened. And as soon as that's in your brain, you know, your reticular activating system goes, hang on, I want more of this. You know, then all of a sudden you're looking around, oh, okay, that's a nice car. Yeah, I can see myself in one of those one day. Oh, that's a really nice car, a house. I can see myself in that one day. And then it's just a compounding effect, you know? As soon as you open up your realm of possibility, then that's when like you start to dream bigger, and you start to hang around people that are dreaming bigger, and you start to take bigger action because you're the kind of person that could make those kind of actions successful. You know, it's just this compounding effect that, and you look back a year later or 5 years later and you're like, fuck, how on earth did I have that mentality before? Look, the world is my oyster. Everything's possible. You know, manifestation, man. It's
100%.
so overlooked.
Man, it's crazy. Like, you know, it's not a magical voodoo thing. It's like, I can't even explain it fully, but I just believe like, hey, look, you're vibrating and you're attracting what you're vibrating. You know, I'll look at my friends saying, look, you know, the best way of explaining, hey, look, it's like a radio station, right? If I'm vibrating at this frequency, and then you're trying to switch to my vibration, you miss by 0.01, I'm on 101.7, and you're 101.8, you're not going to be able to listen to me. And that's the same thing with manifesting, right? If I'm vibrating 101.7, and that's like the vibration of the dream car, and then, you know, that's when the universe, all right, you're aligning with that, that's how I'm going to manifest it. And that's exactly how, like, you know, I have like a list, and this crazy list. When I was younger, when I'm looking back, I'm like, man, like these lists that I've accomplished was huge back then to my younger self. Do you know what I mean? Like, for example, I wanted to be on Sneaker Freaker because that was my favorite magazine of all time. And then we got featured on it. Oh shit, I just ticked that. I thought it wouldn't happen. I want to be on TV. I'm like, oh shit, I'll tick that through So You Think You Dance. I'm like, I want to do this. I'm like, oh shit, I want to be Hypebeast on Hypebeast. Oh man, I tick everything that I wanted. I want to shop. It's like, boom, tick that. So it's so possible, man. I don't know why people are not implementing enough, you know, and it's such a powerful thing. They don't have that self-belief, and it's kind of sad because it's such a waste of genie. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I've been saying. Man, you're just wasting that genie. Now he's gone. That 3 wishes gone because you can tell me what you wanted.
Yeah, that's fantastic, bro. I'm so glad we got to end on that note because it's so powerful, and I want everyone who's listening to really take this entire episode on board because, you know, you've done incredible things. You know, you've done them through your own hard work and through your own ambition, which I admire. You know, I really look up to you as a creator, as a leader. I think you're doing fantastic things. So I appreciate you sharing your time with me, man. Like, this means a lot.
All good, man. Anytime. I'm glad to be on, and humble to be on.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Is there anything that my audience can do to help support you and help drive your mission along?
I don't know, just like check out what we're doing. You know, like with Cabin Noir, we're doing there's big projects that we're doing this year, next year. I can't say yet, but it's got to do with the Australian fashion scene, and we want to globalize that. And I want you to see kind of like the journey we're taking on board, especially with our brand as well. But I just want to share, like, you know, just be kind to everyone. You know what I mean? Like, right now we're in this world where everyone's just being mean and being so segregated, and everyone has their belief, anti-vax this, anti-doing this, COVID this. I'm like, bro, like, just be kind, just be open-minded. You know, you don't have to be an expert at anything. Just like absorb knowledge, and just, like I said, you know, be kind. I think goes a long way.
Fantastic, brother. Thank you so much again. This has been Before the Money with Jack William and Edward Maradona. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day, your night, whatever time you're listening to this. Take these messages on board because this is coming from a really heartfelt place, and we're doing this for you guys. So appreciate it and enjoy yourself. Peace. Thanks for hanging out, team. My intentions with today's chat was to leave you with a jolt of inspiration and to remind you that you already have everything you need to build the life of your dreams. Knowledge is only powerful when we implement what we have learned in the real world. So go take some action on what you have learned today, expand your comfort zone, and make a difference to your life and the life of those around you. All the links discussed, as well as how to find me, will be listed in the show notes below. If you are feeling compelled to support our mission here at Before the Money because you got some value from today's episode, there are 3 simple things you can do right now now that make the world of difference. Number 1, leave behind a 5-star review so that all newcomers know that we bring the goods. Number 2, share this episode to your story or send it to a loved one. We love interacting with you guys on social media. It really does warm our heart when we see you guys sharing it amongst yourselves. Number 3, there is a link for you to donate a few dollars below. Help us really level this shit up. We're taking Before the Money so seriously in 2022, and we have some incredible guests lined up for you, just full of wisdom and value. So, as always, Before the Money is proudly brought to you by AnikiLabel.com. The discount code that I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast will be listed down below, so go check their stuff out. The team and I are ridiculously grateful you've chosen to spend this time with us, and we can't wait to see you guys all back again next week, bouncing with energy, ready to take on the world. Let's go.